They don't merely invite you to a gathering, Cube remarked. They film you at these events. He addressed the prosecution. Do you want to understand why so many choose to remain silent? Inquire about how many received a flash drive in their mailbox. Ask how many got a blocked call with audio of something they can't even recall. Find out how many careers disappeared after they declined. And Jamie wasn't the only one, he continued, mentioning that he was aware of 2 other actors involved in Diddy's gatherings. One of them even contacted him in a panic, claiming he had blacked out past midnight and woke up in a hotel room with a contract in front of him. Cube had been discussing others previously, including Jamie Foxx, Quincy Jones, The System, and The Silence, but now he focused on his own experience. I attended one of those parties, he stated, just once. It was in the early 2000s, without an official invitation or flyer, just a name, a time, and a black SUV waiting outside his hotel. They called it a networking evening, which is what they always referred to it as. Cube mentioned the car took him into the Hollywood Hills along a long, winding driveway. He reached an enormous mansion in Beverly Hills. The gate closed behind him, and the sound of it locking felt more pronounced than it should have. His phone was confiscated at the entrance. No cameras were permitted, yet many were observing. Inside, it wasn't a party. It was a trap. The lighting was dim, excessively so. There was no music, no laughter, and no champagne. There were only soft voices, small groups murmuring, and security personnel positioned at every corner as if they were protecting something or someone. The atmosphere felt completely wrong. Additionally, there were rooms with no signs, some barely ajar. Cube mentioned he could hear odd noises that didn't fit the ambiance. Behind some of those doors were things he preferred not to envision. He recognized some famous faces, well-known celebrities, but they didn't appear like themselves. Some seemed disoriented, others looked frightened, while some appeared utterly lost. Then came the moment that altered everything. Dub recounted how he rounded a corner and spotted a man he respected, one of the top figures in the industry, slumped on a couch, his eyes wide open and vacant, with a camera silently recording him from across the room. That was the tipping point for Cube. He left. There were no inquiries, no casual conversation. He didn't bid farewell. He simply exited, got into the car, and remained silent throughout the journey home. But it wasn't finished. The following day, he received a phone call. There was no caller ID, no introduction, just a single line stating, "We saw you leave." Cube informed the jury that nothing else resulted from it. There was no explicit threat or follow-up, but he didn't require one. He understood the message crystal clear, he stated. That night lingered in his mind for years and transformed his perspective on the industry, people, and success. Cube asserted to the jury that it wasn't a party. It was a trap. He then focused on Diddy, remaining calm and composed. "You didn't just destroy lives," he remarked. "You were the one who recorded them first." The courtroom fell completely silent. Even Diddy's attorney, who usually interrupts frequently, was hurriedly whispering in his ear. Yet Diddy remained unmoved. His complexion was pale, his jaw was clenched, and his gaze was unfocused. This time, he didn't have control over the cameras. At that moment, the courtroom no longer felt like a courtroom. It resembled a confession. Even Diddy's legal team ceased their objections. There was nothing more to be said. However, Ice Cube had more to say. They didn't just attempt to silence Jamie Foxx. Cube stated they aimed to erase him. He meant it literally. Cube informed the jury that in Hollywood, remaining silent is not a choice. It's enforced through a methodical pattern rather than direct threats. This strategy slowly causes someone to vanish without anyone noticing what is occurring. Once Jaime began distancing himself from Diddy's circle, things began to unravel strategically. First, acting opportunities dried up. Projects he was already cast in were abruptly put on hold. Meetings were canceled one after another. Collaborators he had worked with for years suddenly stopped returning his calls. Cube remarked that it didn't feel coincidental. He presented a document, a calendar outlining Jaime's work schedule from 2019 to 2021. At first glance, it appeared to be a typical industry slowdown. But then Cube pointed out something disturbing. There was a series of consecutive cancellations, all linked to companies associated with Bad Boy, Revolt, or one of Diddy's various side ventures. He left the paper there as silent evidence. Cube stated that it didn't end with the job losses. Next came the rumors, the gossip blogs, and sources alleging that Jaime was unstable, unpredictable, and out of touch. He wasn't losing control, Cube clarified to the court. He was liberating himself, and that displeased them. Then the health scare occurred. Cube paused, glanced downward, and inhaled deeply. "Do you genuinely believe that was natural?" he asked quietly. A man in excellent shape suddenly collapses on set right after voicing his concerns about what he witnessed. He wasn't directly accusing anyone, but the implication of his words made his beliefs clear. "I don't know what transpired in that hospital," he said, "but I'm familiar with fear. I'm aware of retaliation. That was more than just a medical crisis. It was a warning." According to Cube, Jaime had received several opportunities to return. They offered him new movie contracts, promotional tours, and paths to redemption. All he needed to do was comply. Shake hands, smile, and pretend nothing occurred. But Jaime refused. That was when things escalated, leading to attempts to replace him. Cube mentioned that was when the clone speculation began. People started doubting everything. Was Jaime still alive? Was that truly him in the images? Why was he shunning the public? Cube didn't label it as a conspiracy. He referred to it as a strategy. "That's their method," he stated. "They dismantle you piece by piece until even your supporters can't discern what's real anymore." His voice lowered again. "That's how they maintain control, not solely through fear, but by erasure." Cube then addressed the jury, his tone becoming sharper. "This isn't merely about music," he declared. "However, this issue transcends political parties. It revolves around control." He made eye contact with each juror and gestured toward the prosecution. "They not only dictate what we hear, but also influence our beliefs, fears, and whom we choose to follow. Hollywood," he clarified, "isn't merely an industry. It's a system designed to take genuine identities and traumas and repackage them as entertainment." "Do you believe it's freedom?" he queried. "No, it's scripted. Every album released and every film financed is all intentional." Then he stated something that sent chills through the room. The same individuals who promoted prison music essentially said, "Well, own the prison." He remarked, "That's the warning Tupac tried to give before they silenced him, before he became too political and began exposing those behind the scenes." And in that instant, the courtroom shifted from observing a trial to witnessing the collapse of an entire system. Ice Cube was unreserved in his remarks. He informed the jury that the extravagant parties everyone talked about weren't truly celebrations. They were assessment rooms where artists were scrutinized, observed, and filmed. Cube referred to them as traps rather than festivities. He described how Diddy's parties functioned like covert auditions. If you complied, you remained safe. If you resisted, there would be consequences. They were evaluating individuals on camera, determining who obeyed and who rebelled. Cube recounted a story about a talented singer who had everything going for her. Yet, she declined to join Bad Boy after receiving one of those invitations. What transpired afterward? In a matter of months, her public perception changed drastically. She was branded as unstable and difficult to collaborate with, resulting in her name vanishing from war shows. Her agency released her. Her attempts to reach out went unanswered. Cube glanced at the jury and took a moment. "Do you consider that mere chance?" "No, I believed it was retribution." Then he delivered a statement that stunned everyone in the courtroom. "I was sitting here trying to understand what Diddy did, but the more important question is, How many individuals assisted him in doing it? At that moment, the trial became larger than just Diddy. It encompassed everyone who stayed silent, those who enabled him, and all who aided in the cover-up. The judge leaned back in his chair. The audience was completely still. Even the prosecutors appeared unsettled. This had evolved into more than a celebrity trial. It was no longer solely about the system that allowed him to flourish. It was also about the individuals who upheld it, shielded it, and sustained it. The judge inquired if Ice Cube had any concluding remarks. Without hesitation, he rose slowly, stepped away from the witness stand, and moved to the middle of the courtroom. He wasn't hurried or performing for effect. Each step seemed significant. He locked eyes with Diddy directly. "You created an empire on the silence of others," he declared. "You labeled it success, but it was enslavement." Diddy remained motionless, staring blankly ahead, looking pale. Yet Cube stood firm. "You didn't merely host parties. You constructed emotional and psychological prisons, filling them with individuals who believed they were being honored, but were actually under surveillance, manipulation, and exploitation." His voice remained steady, becoming more confident with each statement. "You shattered lives," he declared, "and then you recorded it." Cube turned away from Diddy to address the audience. "To all the artists watching, and every aspiring individual, recognize this. Before granting you access to your aspirations, they will demand something in return. This could be your voice, your dignity, or sometimes everything you have." He surveyed the crowd, warning that by the time you realize what you've sacrificed, it will already be too late. Q then took a moment to express something he hadn't mentioned earlier. "I was afraid." The room fell silent. He felt fear because he was aware of what he had witnessed, what he had heard, and what he had been drawn into. He chose silence, believing it would spare him from isolation. He addressed the jury, saying, "But remaining silent does not safeguard you. It merely postpones the harm." He stated it clearly. Silence makes you complicit. He retrieved a single photo from the folder he had brought along. "This was me in 1991, full of hope. I thought I could revolutionize the industry without compromising my identity." He gazed at the photo for a moment before raising it high. "That version of me didn't survive," he said, and then he ripped it in half. However, the person standing, here now, the one who came to give evidence, is no longer afraid of any of you. The room fell completely silent. Even Diddy's legal team ceased their objections. Reporters stopped typing away. Jurors stopped blinking. It no longer felt like a trial. It felt more like a memorial for the silence that had previously safeguarded the system. Cube went back to the witness stand, carefully placed the ripped photo on top of the folder, and then looked up at the judge. "I'm not sure what you'll do with all this, but you can no longer act as if you didn't hear it. Now all of you are aware." He turned to Diddy once more. "You believed no one would come forward. You thought everyone was buried in fear. But the silence has been shattered now. The door that you kept locked for so long is now wide open." Then Cube stepped down from the stand. He didn't stop to acknowledge the press. He didn't look at the jury. He walked down the aisle like a man who had just revealed every truth he had carried for years. Just before reaching the exit, he turned slightly and stated, "They didn't kill Jamie. They didn't kill me. They simply made us louder." With that, he exited the courtroom. But what he left behind was more than just testimony. It was a warning. It represented a change, and it marked the beginning of a storm that no one present in that room will ever forget. This isn't just a courtroom drama, it's a wake-up call. If you've ever chased a dream, admired a star, or believed in the magic of Hollywood, then you now understand the price behind the curtain. What Ice Cube revealed wasn't just testimony. It was a mirror, showing us the cost of silence, the courage it takes to speak, and the danger of complicity. If this story moved you, made you angry, or even made you think twice, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video if you stand for truth. Drop a comment. Who do you believe, and what do you think is really going on? Subscribe to join a growing community that refuses to stay silent, because today the silence broke, and it started with one voice.